Mazda builds some of the most reliable engines on the road. Dealerships know it. That is exactly why they never tell you the 17 habits that make the difference between an engine that dies at 150,000 miles and one that does not. Studies show that less than 1% of cars ever cross 400,000 miles. Mine did. Not because I got lucky, because I did these things consistently while most drivers did not. Today I am showing you all 17. Let's get into it. Number 17, never ignoring the oil change. Interval. A skipped oil change sounds harmless. It is not. Skyactiv engines run tighter tolerances than older Mazda motors, and sludge builds up fast once you cross 5,000 miles on conventional oil. Full synthetic buys you extra room, but 7,500 miles is still the wall, not a suggestion you can push a little further every time. Push past that wall repeatedly and you are looking at bearing wear that can cost over $4,000 to repair once the damage is done. One filter, a few quarts of oil, maybe $60 total. That is the cheapest insurance policy anywhere in the entire car. Most drivers still skip it anyway, telling themselves the engine sounds fine, so it must be fine. Engines do not warn you until the damage is already happening internally, and by then, sound is the least useful indicator you have. Think about that math for a second. $60 spent every few months versus $4,000 spent once, and most people still choose to gamble anyway. So what is the next habit that quietly wrecks engines without anyone noticing until the bill arrives? Let us keep going. Number 16, rotating tires on a strict schedule. Uneven tire wear feels purely cosmetic. It is not. Skip rotations and one corner wears down fast, throwing off alignment and quietly straining the drivetrain in ways you cannot see or hear from behind the wheel. A car under constant hidden strain runs hotter everywhere, including places connected directly to engine performance and longevity. Rotate every 5,000 to 7,500 miles, and the whole system stays balanced the way it was engineered to. Ignore it long enough, and you could be looking at premature differential wear that costs hundreds, sometimes well over $1,000 to properly repair. This habit gets dismissed constantly because tires feel completely separate from the engine sitting up front, but nothing on a modern car actually operates in total isolation from everything else around it. If you are learning something new here, consider subscribing now to keep videos like this coming. Why? Well, because the next 15 habits get a lot more specific and a lot more expensive if ignored. Up next is a fluid almost nobody checks until it's already too late to matter. Number 15, checking coolant levels, monthly, not yearly. High compression, Skyactiv engines run hotter than older Mazda motors by design, which is part of what makes them so efficient in the first place. Coolant is the only thing standing between that extra heat and a warped cylinder head sitting in your driveway. A 30-second glance at the overflow tank once a month costs you absolutely nothing in time or money. Ignore it for long enough, and a blown head gasket can cost over $3,000 to fix properly, plus weeks without your car, while parts get ordered and labor gets scheduled. Low coolant does not always trigger a dashboard warning early enough to actually save you from damage. By the time that light comes on, the damage may already be happening deep inside the engine where you cannot see it. This one habit alone has probably saved more Mazda engines over the years than any dealership service plan ever has. Think of coolant as the quiet bodyguard nobody thanks until it fails to show up for work one day. But coolant only helps the engine if the pump pushing it around the entire system is actually healthy to begin with. Number 14. Replacing the water pump. Before it fails, not after water pumps do not die instantly out of nowhere. They whine first. They leak a little first, usually for weeks before total failure arrives. Most drivers ignore those early warning signs completely because the car still drives fine on the surface. Then one day, nothing works the way it should. No coolant circulation, an engine overheating, hitting within minutes of starting, and a possible cracked block if you keep driving on it hoping it resolves itself. Replacing a water pump proactively around 90,000 to 100,000 miles, even if it still seems to be working fine, prevents a catastrophic failure at the absolute worst possible moment, usually on a highway far from home. Thousands of drivers get stranded on the shoulder every single year from this exact preventable failure. Do not be one of the statistics that could have been avoided completely with a $200 part replaced calmly ahead of schedule instead of reactively after a breakdown. Next up is a mistake that looks completely harmless sitting on the shelf at any auto parts store nearby. Number 13, using the correct oil weight every single time. Skyactiv engines are genuinely picky about what goes into them, more than most drivers realize. 0W20 is the factory specification for most Skyactiv G engines, and grabbing a thicker oil simply because it happened to be on sale is not a smart substitution, no matter how similar it looks on the shelf. Thicker oil starves tight tolerances of proper flow during cold starts, which is exactly the moment when the most engine wear actually happens across the entire lifespan of the vehicle. The factory spec printed in the manual is not a marketing gimmick designed to sell you something specific. It is precise engineering built around exact clearances. Using the wrong weight for years quietly shaves life off internal components without ever triggering a single warning light on the dashboard. It looks and feels identical to doing it correctly, right up until the day it very much is not, usually announced by a knocking sound nobody wants to hear. And that brings us to a habit almost every single driver gets impatient about on cold mornings, especially when they are already running late for work. Number 12. Letting the engine warm up for 30 seconds before driving. Hard. Nobody wants to sit in a cold driveway waiting around before work, but direct injection engines need a few genuine seconds for oil to fully circulate through every moving part before facing real load out on the road. Flooring it within the first 30 seconds of a cold start is one of the fastest possible ways to accelerate wear on pistons, rings, and bearings simultaneously. You do not need 5 full minutes of idling like it is decades ago and carburetors are still involved. 30 seconds of gentle, easy driving before any hard acceleration is genuinely enough to protect the internals properly. It costs you nothing but a small amount of patience, and patience seems to be in short supply lately based on how rough many engines already sound by 200,000 miles. Up next, a habit tied directly to the short commutes most people drive every single day without ever thinking twice about the damage quietly piling up underneath the hood. Number 11. Avoiding short trip syndrome. Short trips are brutal on an engine, especially on turbocharged Skyactiv variants that rely on reaching proper operating temperature to function efficiently. A 5-minute drive to the store does not give the engine nearly enough time to reach full operating temperature, so condensation builds up inside the crankcase instead of burning off the way it should. That moisture mixes directly with the oil and slowly forms sludge over months and years of repeated short trips. If most of your driving consists of short hops around town, combine errands into fewer, longer trips whenever possible, or occasionally take the car out on a 20-minute highway run just to get everything properly hot. Pull a valve cover on a sludge-choked engine sometime, and you will understand immediately why this habit matters more than most drivers ever give it credit for, especially those who only ever drive to the mailbox and back. If you're enjoying this, hit that subscribe button now, because the habits from here on are about to get a lot more expensive if you keep ignoring them. Short trips are nothing compared to the habit most owners assume does not even matter until the day it costs them a full engine. The next habit is one oversight many car owners do not realize is dangerous. Number 10. Replacing spark plugs on time, not when they fail. Iridium spark plugs in modern Mazdas are rated for roughly 60,000 to 100,000 miles under genuinely ideal driving conditions. Worn plugs cause misfires, and the engine control unit compensates automatically by dumping extra fuel into the affected cylinder to try and keep things running smoothly. That unburned excess fuel washes protective oil straight off the cylinder walls, accelerating wear on the rings and the cylinder bore itself with every single misfire. A $10 spark plug ignored for too long can quietly cause damage running into the thousands of dollars once everything is finally diagnosed properly. Replace them proactively on schedule, not reactively after problems already start showing up. This particular habit is easy to forget because a slightly worn plug does not feel dramatically different behind the wheel during normal daily driving, until it very much does, and by that point the damage underneath is already well underway, hiding quietly behind a check engine light that is not even turned on yet. And a worn spark plug is nothing compared to what happens when the engine never gets a chance to clean itself out from the inside. Number 9. Managing carbon buildup on direct injection. Valves. Direct injection. Skyactiv engines share one well-documented weakness across the entire lineup, and it catches a lot of owners completely off guard when it finally shows up. Fuel sprays directly into the combustion chamber instead of passing over the intake valves first, so nothing naturally washes carbon deposits away the way older port-injected engines used to handle automatically. Carbon builds up slowly over tens of thousands of miles, gradually restricting airflow and eventually causing a rough idle, along with noticeably reduced power output. Walnut shell media blasting performed every 60,000 to 80,000 miles physically removes this buildup before it becomes a serious drivability problem. Quality top-tier fuel combined with an occasional intake cleaner treatment slows the buildup considerably between professional services. Ignore this long enough, and a full intake valve cleaning can run into several $100s at a shop. This will be far more expensive than routine prevention would have ever cost you in the first place. The next habit on this list is even easier to overlook completely, mostly because it hides in plain sight under the hood the entire time. Number 8. Keeping the cabin and engine air filters fresh. This one sounds almost too simple to matter, but simple habits are exactly what this entire video is about. A clogged engine air filter forces the engine to work considerably harder, just pulling in air, which can throw off the air-fuel ratio over time in ways that affect efficiency. A clogged cabin filter will not touch engine performance directly, but it strains your blower motor and air conditioning system the longer it stays dirty and neglected. Both filters are genuinely cheap, both take roughly 15 minutes to swap out yourself in a driveway, and both get ignored by almost everyone until something starts smelling wrong inside the cabin. Swap the engine filter every 15,000 to 30,000 miles depending on your specific driving environment and dust exposure. Change the cabin filter about once a year, regardless of mileage driven. Small parts, small cost, but they protect components that are anything but small or cheap to eventually replace. Rust, on the other hand, plays a much bigger and far more expensive game entirely, one that can quietly outlast the engine itself if left unchecked. Number 7. Protecting against rust in the right places. We are officially past the halfway point now, and this next one surprises a lot of owners who assume rust is just a cosmetic issue for people who care too much about resale value. Mazdas built before roughly 2017 have earned a well-known reputation for rust developing around wheel arches, rear quarter panels, and subframes, especially in states that use road salt heavily throughout winter months. Rust is never purely cosmetic, no matter how it initially appears on the surface of a panel. It eats away at structural components over time, and severe corrosion discovered on rear subframes has actually led to genuine recalls issued on certain model years by Mazda itself. Regular undercarriage washes performed during winter months, especially right after driving on freshly salted roads, plus an annual rust inhibitor spray applied to vulnerable areas, adds real structural years onto the overall life of the car. Owners living in northern climates who ignore this habit consistently often end up owning a mechanically flawless engine bolted permanently to a body that is quietly falling apart underneath them the entire time, sometimes past the point where any shop will even touch it for a safety inspection. But a rusted frame is a slow death. The next habit on this list can kill a transmission in a single season if you believe the wrong label. Number 6. Changing transmission. Fluid, even though Mazda calls it lifetime. Here is the exact myth we promised to bust earlier. The one that has destroyed thousands of transmissions across owners who trusted the label a little too literally without reading the fine print. Mazda labels automatic transmission fluid as a lifetime fill on many models sold today, but that technically means the life of the transmission itself, not the life of the entire car you plan on driving for decades. Transmission fluid breaks down under heat and accumulated mileage, just like literally any other fluid circulating through the vehicle. Running it past 100,000 miles completely untouched dramatically raises the risk of shift hesitation, noticeable slipping, and eventual outright failure of internal components. Most independent Mazda specialists quietly recommend a fluid change around 60,000 to 80,000 miles, regardless of what the official published schedule technically implies to unsuspecting owners. A proper fluid service costs a few $100s performed at a competent shop. A full transmission replacement can easily cost well over $3,000 once labor and parts are both factored into the final bill. That math should not be genuinely difficult for anyone paying close attention to their long-term ownership cost. Yet this exact myth keeps circulating year after year among unsuspecting owners. A bad transmission is expensive. However, the next failure does not just cost money, it can leave you stranded in traffic with zero warning at all. Number 5. Replacing motor and transmission. Mounts before they fully fail. If you have made it to the top 5, you already care more about your Mazda than most owners ever will. Rubber motor mounts degrade slowly and steadily past the 100,000 mile mark, and a worn mount does considerably more than simply cause annoying vibration at idle. It allows excess engine movement under normal load, which stresses hoses, wiring harnesses, and belts that were genuinely never designed to flex anywhere near that dramatically over extended periods. A clunk noticed on acceleration or heavy vibration felt at idle is usually the very first warning sign most owners notice. Wait until a mount fully fails completely and you risk cascading damage to everything positioned around it, sometimes badly enough to affect basic drivability of the vehicle entirely. Replacing worn mounts the moment you first notice early symptoms is far cheaper in the long run than repairing all the collateral damage they were quietly holding back the entire time they were slowly failing underneath the hood, unnoticed and unbothered by anyone paying attention. A failed mount is annoying. What is coming up next is the habit almost every driver swears they will get to eventually, right up until it is too late. Number 4. Using a fuel system. Cleaner and quality fuel. Consistently. We are getting close to the top 3 now, and the stakes only keep climbing from here. Top-tier detergent gasoline keeps injectors and intake components genuinely cleaner over the long run compared to bargain fuel containing minimal detergent additives from discount stations. Combined with an occasional fuel system cleaner treatment, this simple habit reduces carbon buildup considerably and keeps injectors spraying a proper, consistent fuel pattern into each cylinder. Inconsistent combustion caused by dirty injectors forces the engine to run either richer or leaner than intended. hurting fuel economy noticeably and accelerating wear on cylinders along with the catalytic converter over time. It is genuinely one of the cheapest habits featured anywhere on this entire list, and yet also one of the most consistently ignored by everyday drivers, mostly because the negative effects build up slowly instead of arriving all at once like a dramatic failure would. But ignoring this next warning coming up is a considerably faster and more expensive mistake to make than anything we have covered so far on this entire list. Number 3. Addressing every check. Engine light. Immediately, not eventually. We are officially in the top 3 now, and the stakes here are about as high as anything on this entire list. A check engine light does not always signal complete disaster waiting to happen. Sometimes it really is just a loose gas cap that needs tightening properly. But ignoring the light simply because the car still drives fine on the surface is exactly how a small, cheap sensor issue slowly transforms into a major, expensive mechanical problem down the road. A failing oxygen sensor left unaddressed for several months can throw off the entire air-fuel ratio the whole time it goes unnoticed, quietly damaging the catalytic converter with every single mile driven. Getting a diagnostic code read the same week it first appears, rather than months later once other symptoms show up, is the genuine difference between a $50 sensor replacement and a repair bill running well over $1,000 once everything cascades into a much bigger problem. Pause the video for just 1 second right now. What is the oldest warning light you have personally ever ignored on your own car? Drop it in the comments down below. We genuinely read every single one of them and love seeing just how many of us have done the exact same thing. Now, back to it. A cheap sensor is one thing, but the next habit on this list is the difference between a car that quietly dies at 200,000 miles and one that just keeps going. Number 2. Following the timing. Chain inspection schedule, not ignoring it. We are down to the final 2 habits, the ones that separate a car that dies quietly in a junkyard from one that keeps running for decades. Most modern Skyactiv engines use a timing chain rather than a rubber belt, so there is technically no fixed replacement interval printed anywhere the way older belt-driven Mazdas historically required from their owners. That does not mean the system is entirely maintenance-free forever though, no matter what some owners assume. Chains can stretch out over very high accumulated mileage, and the tensioner responsible for keeping the chain properly taut can wear out over time, causing a distinct rattling noise on cold start that gradually worsens with every passing month. Left completely unchecked for long enough, a stretched chain can eventually jump timing entirely and cause severe internal engine damage running into thousands of dollars in repair costs. Getting the chain and tensioner professionally inspected around the 200,000 mile mark. Then periodically again, after that milestone, catches developing wear long before it ever becomes a genuine engine-ending event that most owners never actually saw coming, until it was far too late to prevent. By then, the repair bill speaks entirely for itself. Number 1. Sticking to a written maintenance log for every single service. Here it is, the number 1 habit. The one that quietly holds everything else on this list together like glue. This is the one habit that genuinely ties every other habit on this entire list together into something that actually works long term. A written log, whether kept on paper or tracked carefully through a simple app, tracks exactly when each individual service happened and precisely when the next one is realistically due. Without a proper log, owners inevitably guess at intervals. They forget important dates entirely. They push oil changes back a few thousand extra miles simply because they genuinely cannot remember exactly when the last one actually happened. A maintenance log removes all of that guesswork completely from the equation. It also adds real, measurable resale value down the line if you ever decide to sell the car, since thoroughly documented service history matters enormously to serious buyers doing their research. Every other habit featured on this entire list only actually works consistently over hundreds of thousands of miles if you genuinely track it properly. This is exactly why this simple, unglamorous habit earns the top spot at number 1 on this whole list, above every single flashier, more expensive fix mentioned earlier. 17 habits laid out from least critical all the way to the single most important one. None of them are particularly flashy on their own. None of them are especially expensive individually either. According to widely cited industry estimates, over 70% of major car repairs performed nationwide are linked directly to skipped or significantly delayed maintenance, not underlying manufacturing defects baked into the vehicle from the factory. That statistic is genuinely not an accident of bad luck. It is the exact same story quietly playing out in driveways everywhere across the country right now. Now, here's a bonus tip. Keep every single receipt, not just the ones for major repairs. Oil filters, cabin filters, even a $10 bottle of fuel cleaner. Those small receipts, stacked together over hundreds of thousands of miles, tell a complete story that a memory alone simply cannot recreate later on. A car that has documented this thoroughly tends to get treated with more care by every single shop that works on it going forward, because they can see exactly how it has been maintained from day one. Thanks so much for watching this one all the way through. If you found these 17 habits genuinely helpful, let us know exactly which one surprised you most down in the comments section below. Want to find out more about getting more miles on your engine? Click on the next video appearing right on your screen to find out. And if you do not want to miss more detailed tips like this one in the future, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now before you head off to the next video waiting for you right on this screen.